What's up, Kevin Colby?
What's up, John?
Dude, how does it feel to be like the first guest on the inaugural, or should I say, the inaugural first episode of the Father Effect YouTube Live? Are you feeling special?
I would, except I know that you asked about 12 other people and they said no. So always the 12th to the dance. Is that what the phrase is?
Whatever, dude. Whatever. Hey,
No,
brother.
I'm pumped to be here, bro. I appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you, dude. First guest on the inaugural. I'm catching feedback now.
The inaugural first episode. Yeah, turn your. There you go. I would, except I know. There you go.
Okay. There you go. A little tech. Hey, as a matter of fact, I tried to get on and like Google. Every time I've never had an issue, and all of a sudden I try to log on to do this in Chrome, and like something came up. Anyway,
welcome to the high-tech life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, for those of you who are joining us and don't know who I am John Finch with the Father Effect. I made a movie a few years ago, and we have a book by the same name called The Father Effect. And the movie, the 60-minute free version, is actually available here on YouTube, and I'll put the link in the description below. So our goal here is to help dads become the fathers God created them to be through the advice and stories of others. That's what I love about Kevin Colby and his story, man. This guy is just an absolute stud. Love his humility and just love his story. Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. How you grew up, where you grew up, that type of thing.
Well, for the first 9 months, I don't remember a lot. It's a joke. Good night, everybody. Originally from Nashville, Tennessee, a place I never thought I would move from. I'm an only child, which my friends tell me they always say that explains a lot. I always wanted brothers and sisters. Actually, true story. I wanted a younger brother growing up so I could boss him around. So there's my first confession for this interview. But loving parents, and decided there was a lot of things I wanted to be growing up, and had the opportunity as I started college. I got into radio. I was in radio for a few years. It's still my first love. Had a chance to get into television, and was in television for a long time before moving to Raleigh, North Carolina. So I've been in around media and marketing for 30 plus years, and job went away a few years ago. So I just started my own business using my God gifts, and at kind of the way I think God was pointing me. And so I run a video marketing business right now, but beautiful wife and 3 kids, mortgage, and, all this stuff, and a pickup truck.
Oh,
and good hair. I think that's it. I think that covers everything.
Living in the South, you got to have a pickup truck. Is that too stereotypical?
You know what's funny is I didn't have a pickup truck until we moved, because when we lived in Nashville, my dad had a truck, my wife's dad had a truck, and I worked with a guy that had a truck, and I was broke poor, and I thought, well, I'm not going to buy a truck till we move, and I'm like, I need a truck. I love my truck.
Once you have a truck, then everybody becomes your friend, because everybody's
borrow it, right? Yeah. Hey, that's a nice truck. Can I borrow it?
Yeah. Hey, I'm moving this weekend. Do you have anything going on? Yeah. So, dude, tell me about your father's story. Like, what was your relationship like with your dad?
It was good. It was good. I mean, again, it's funny because, my mom had one brother, and he wouldn't have anything to do with her. And, which was just, it's pathetic, but that's the way it was. And my dad had, 2 sisters and 4 other brothers. And then they had me, and we had a good relationship. I mean, I grew up doing a lot of stuff with my dad. I remember hanging out while he's working on the car. I remember going places with him, going to work with him. And he used to work years ago, I don't even think it exists anymore, at Western Electric, which eventually became South Central Bell, which eventually became AT&T. And I just remember hanging with him a lot. I didn't pick up any of the stuff. I can't fix my car, and I can't wire anything. But it was about just being with him and doing stuff. and very loving, very supportive. In fact, he and my mom still to this day, I don't know if they understand what I do, but but still very supportive. And it was a good relationship. Now, did we have those moments? Yeah, we did. I mean, especially in the teenage years, looking back now, I realize what a cocky jerk I was. Um, but we had a good relationship. Still do.
It's interesting having all girls like I do, and I talk to fathers all the time that have daughters, and it seems like in that age of 13 to
Yeah.
sometimes 19, 20, 21, 22 even, it's like, hey man, my girl and the mom are just butting heads and blah, blah. I was like, look, I just had a conversation with a guy. That's totally normal, dude.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
especially with wives and daughters, it's like there's a certain age where they're just trying to figure the
Yeah.
daughter's trying to figure out her independence,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and of course, parents, they think we're all idiots at some point or another,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
until they hit a certain age, and it's like, oh my gosh,
You know
mom and
something.
dad kind of know what they're
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah. And it's just part of growing up too. I mean, now granted, there are some very toxic parent-child relationships, and it's sad. At whatever stage it comes, and sometimes it's on the parent, sometimes it's on the kid, but there is that rite of passage, and my oldest son and I are still very, very tight. In fact, he was messaging me a little bit ago going, hey, you watching the game? And we're talking about all this other stuff. But I think it's to be expected that you're going to have to butt heads at some point, because I mean, they got to learn their way. They got to, and they're testing. I mean, kids test early on anyway, what those boundaries are. And then they travel over into the teenage years and it's like, ooh, there's a little bit more freedom here. Let me test these boundaries.
Well, and two, I loved, man, you and your relationship with your daughter. I know you were doing something at one point, like every Friday or something. You were having dinner or breakfast or whatever, and just the engagement, you can tell, dude, you're just so tuned into your daughter. How did that? I mean, where did you learn how to be that to her? Did you just kind of figure it out on your own?
That is a good question. I know that my wife Lisa, before we had kids, we said, there's things that we want, boundaries or traditions, probably a little of both, that we want to set. Like, for example, we would say, we will always have dinner together as a family, unless something happens and we're just on the road or something like that. We'll always have dinner together. We're not going to have phones at the table, and we'll engage with each other. And even growing up, then we'd do other things, like on Friday nights, one of the kids would cook with Lisa and stuff like that. So we kind of decided that we wanted to have time with each kid so we could just have that time. And so Lisa a lot of times would cook with them, and then I would do different things with them. And how that one may have evolved is, we started doing this thing on Fridays. This is when I was working at the television station. So I said, hey, how about this? On Fridays, I'll take and drop the kids off at school, and we'll swing by and get coffee. And so we'd go to a coffee shop, I'd grab a coffee, and then I'd drop them off at school. Or at that point, if my daughter wasn't old enough for school, I'd take her back home. And then I'd go on to work. And then eventually it became, well, why didn't she and I just do breakfast? Because she eventually ended up being homeschooled, and that may have been when we started that. So she, on a Friday, we could go and just grab coffee, grab breakfast, and then come back, and then she'd do her thing and I'd do mine. And it just became that thing we always looked forward to. But it also expanded other things too, where in the summer, my oldest son and I would always go fishing somewhere. Didn't have to be anywhere crazy. A lot of times just went to the coast, because we live in North Carolina and the beach isn't that far. And then typically we'd go to see a Panthers game every year. And then my daughter and I would do other things, like a couple of trips I went on, she went with me. And so it's just finding those things where you can do together that don't even have to be like crazy. And I think that's how it all started.
It brings back a memory too, because there's so much. When we were making the movie and I was interviewing Dr. Meg Meeker, she's really good. And one of the things she talked about is what you're saying. Spending time with our kids shows our kids that they're important to us.
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
value them, right? That because we're making time, we're carving out a piece of our schedule
Yeah.
to spend time with them. So for you to be able to do that with your daughter every week, I mean, that's huge, man, in that relationship with your daughter. And obviously I'm sure you guys were able to grow closer as a result of it.
Yeah, and you know, going back to the time thing, I remember being, I think it was Promise Keepers years ago, and I think it was Josh McDowell said the way a child spells love is Time, and that's always stuck with me. Um, and then you feel guilty when you know you don't have the time. And I never wanted the Cats in the Cradle song to become the real song in my head, you know, or in life. And but I was telling somebody this the other day that, you know, if you don't take time for your kids, the world will. And the world will have no problem with showing them the way, a lot of times the wrong way. So if you see it as a job, it's the wrong thing. But you know, I still to this day, I love being with our kids, you know, individually, together. I mean, just now, sometimes we get on each other's nerves, but that's what we do as parents.
That's a dad's job.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's like that's my job and embarrass you.
yeah. Well, and I think too, at least in my own experience, I think it rings true for everybody when you have that dedicated time, especially one-on-one. I know
Yeah,
my girls, especially as they were younger, I would have these one-on-one date nights, and it's amazing what they tell you when
yeah,
it's just you and them that they wouldn't otherwise say when it's you as a family or you and even one other sibling,
oh
right?
really?
It's
Yeah,
it's it's the insights
yeah.
and the value of those conversations. That's where a lot of what I learned about my own daughters came.
Yeah. Well, you know, we always told our kids that, you know, we want you to be honest with us, and we would rather you tell us what's going on or the truth, even if you know it may not go well or it may not be what we want to hear. We'd rather hear it and then we'll deal with it rather than guess or be lied to or something like that. Now, you know, look, I know that we all had those moments, but that's always how we tried to raise them, thinking that and knowing that you know we'd rather you just tell us. And the funny thing is, they would tell us things every once in a while, and I would be thinking, I don't think I would have told my parents that. I never said that out loud, you know.
Right. Well, and you know what too? It's interesting because I think I always tell my girls, and I've tried to ingrain this in them. There's nothing you can do that's going to make me love you any more, any less.
Yep,
And,
absolutely. Yeah,
and it's I'm high hoping that's in deep enough where they
yeah.
understand and know that. And we, you know, I think out of that's come some really good conversations. Hey, if you're getting value from this, hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified every time we go live or release a video, which we're doing just about every week now. So, Kevin, you have a special needs child. Tell us about him.
I do, yeah. We refer to him as Little Dude. We don't have that copyrighted, but we do. His name's Elias. He's 12, and he has special needs. His technical diagnoses is called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which we didn't know anything about, and we had to research it. It's kind of like a high form of epilepsy, but there's other issues he has along with that. But that's the diagnosis. So he's like nonverbal, but he can make noise. I always like to tell people that. We get occasionally we'll get a out of him. He's very ticklish, by the way. He can't support himself, so like we always pick him up anywhere he's sitting. He's got to be, you know, he not necessarily strapped in, but not like you and I, you know, we could lean forward and be okay, and he can't. He can't walk, but he can kick his feet. He has some grip, very limited learning. I think I mentioned he's 12. Developmentally, he might be 1.5 to 2. And there's some other things too, but that's kind of the nutshell of Elias.
So now, was he born with that? Because I don't know that I've asked you that before.
Yes, yeah, he was. Yeah.
Okay. And I know there, dude, just from the conversations we had, and this is what I love about you, brother, is the humility in the way you are just you. And I look at that.
Like it or not.
I look at that though, and I think, a lot of that, I'm sure if you weren't humble before you had Elias, a lot of that though even comes from that whole experience, understanding and really appreciating the gift of life and just what
Yeah.
so many others may take for granted, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, kids will humble you. I mean, I've always enjoyed being around kids, except probably when I was a kid. But kids, a lot of times there's no filter, and they'll just tell you, how's your shirt look? It looks horrible. Okay, that's what I need to hear. You know, but they also, I mean, I remember speaking at a church once, and we were talking about they were doing a special Father's Day, so they had a grandfather, and they had, and I was one of the speakers as having a young, I think at that point my oldest was our only, very young, and I said, there's something that's amazing about a young child before they get to the point where they understand anything about race and injustice and all this stuff, and they just see people for people. They may look, you look a little different, but that's okay. Let's go play. And but yeah, kids will humble you very quickly. And I don't know. I mean, the things uncomfortable about interviews like this is that my wife really should get more of the credit for the parenting. I mean, she's just amazing. She's absolutely amazing. And a lot of times, it's because I'm the one that's in front of the camera doing all this stuff, but it's a team, and we I know this wasn't the question, but we always have said, even if we disagree, we will agree on what we're going to do.
Well, and too, man, and I think in one of our previous conversations, having a child that's special needs, there's still this desire that you don't want them to be treated any differently than anybody else, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. And it's funny you say that, because we went to Disney World a few years ago, and Elias was young, and at the time there were some things you could do if you had a person, not even just a child, with you with disabilities and things like that. You could like get on the tram first or whatever. But what happened though is a lot of places. Like I remember, for example, we went to see one of the Toy Story things. I don't know, with the characters, and we literally didn't know where to line up. So I went over to the lady and I said, "Hey, where do we go to get in line?" And she looks, and of course, Elias is in a wheelchair, and she goes, "Excuse me." She goes, "Wait right here." And she takes off, and she comes back. She goes, "Follow me," and she takes us the whole through this back way, goes in, stops the crowd, and then we get to go up and meet Buddy and Woody and Buzz, and they were like, "Take your time." And it's like, it's cool, but then you feel bad because you're looking over here and all these people are like, "Hey, wait a minute, how come he got to go before me?" And and be honest, the temptation is like, well, shouldn't we always get this because our child has special needs? And the reality is no. No, 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 no. We don't want pity. We don't want people looking at Elias and going, "Oh, that poor little boy." I mean, dude, I've learned more about life from my kids, and especially Elias, and especially God's grace and his plans than, don't tell any pastor I said this, and probably I've learned more than most sermons I've heard.
Well,
you'll cut that part out later in the playback.
Sure, I'll edit that. Yeah. Well, and that's what was going to be my next question, honestly, was, and not only through Elias, but your kids, what's been one of the more valuable lessons you've learned?
Well, it's funny. And I think this applies to all of them too. But, when my wife and I were just saying the other day that, if when you have kids, your schedule really doesn't matter that much anymore. Where before you were pretty much in charge of your schedule. That's going to change a lot with kids. When you have a special needs kids, you better be flexible. Now, that's not to say, I don't have any patience. I've never had patience. I found this out later. So I love to build like little models growing up, like model cars and planes and monsters and stuff, but I had no patience. So I didn't understand or appreciate the concept of letting the paint dry. So then later you could paint it. So I wanted to just put it together. And so, everything was like, where the paint would sag. I mean, the glue would sag and the doors were falling off. And then I had like, white cars and white spaceships and stuff because I didn't want to paint it. And to the point where my dad, it bothered him so much, he would tell people, hey, don't ever give him a model. Don't ever give him a model, because it was driving him nuts.
Don't get him that for Christmas.
Yeah, do not. I don't care what he asked for. Santa, come here. Don't. But you with a special needs child, I mean, it can get frustrating sometimes, because it's like, okay, here's what we're going to do tonight. Oh, this has got to do this. And that, there's the things you schedule, and then there's life. But that can also happen too, where, we're going to do this, somebody gets sick, we're going to do this happens, and I'm not talking about like, the other thing we always do with our kids is you won't have so many things on your schedule that you can't have a life. No sport, and I love sports. No sport is that important. No civic club is that important. You can't have, I'm sorry, but this is my take. No 12-year-old needs a calendar that they're, well, let me see if I can go over to your house later today and play. Oh, no, I can't. I can fit you in on Thursday. How about that? They're kids. They need to play. But yeah, you learn to roll with it. So it teaches me that I better be okay with, sometimes it's just not going to be my time, and it's not going to be about me. And then making sure that your wife is feeling that way too, because it is a partnership, and how we can trade off. And Lisa and I have traded off on a lot of things before, where we know it needed to be done, and you just like, I'll take care of this and you take care of that, and we get it done.
What do you want other people to know, other parents that don't have special needs kids? What do you want them to know about parents with special needs kids?
Well, first of all, I'll speak for us. We don't want to be pitied. I mean, a lot of times you'll get that. You'll get the pity. And it's like, look, first of all, if you were asking me if I would choose my path again with these kids, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I believe, and I know my wife does too, that, God chose us to have these kids. They were earmarked for us. And despite our faults, more mine than hers. But, I think, sometimes though, it would be nice just to kind of understand a little bit more of what you have to go through. That maybe you're trying a little harder than somebody else realizes. And there's a lot of obstacles. I mean, I believe with all my heart, and you know this because you know me, that if you're a parent, doesn't matter whether your child has special needs or not, you have got to be an advocate for your child. You have to. But especially when it comes to the special needs things, I mean, it's just amazing, John, how jacked up prices will get, or the dances you have to do with insurance and things like that. And so I think, to understand that sometimes we're not looking for it handed out to us at all. We're not looking for that first spot in line. But sometimes it's like, dang it, should we have to go through this many more hoops just to kind of get the same thing, just because it's special needs? But at the same time, I mean, I've said this before. I mean, I think we're all special needs. I do. I mean, because if we're not, then we don't have any need for God, and I need God, and I need Jesus. So, understanding that, I don't think that we're not asking for pity or something like that, but maybe just rather than what's wrong with him, like, well, tell me more about your son, and seeing a son or a daughter that has special needs as just another kid.
But I think to what you just said, because I know this conversation could be uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's tell me more about your son instead of what's wrong, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And and the funny thing is, I mean, so my wife and I kind of have a thing where with kids it's one thing, with parents it's another. I mean, with adults it's another. So, like our son is tube fed. And if you don't know what that means, it means literally he has a hole in his stomach, and there's I think I forgot what it's called, like a bolus or something like that. And so we have a long tube that's hooked up to a bag, and that's so he takes nothing by mouth because he's a silent aspirator. And so everything is liquid, which has been a godsend because when he gets sick, we can keep him hydrated, even if we don't have to go to Pedialyte. We can keep his medicines in him. So that's huge. Well, just imagine being out somewhere and you're holding it and you're pouring the liquid in that almost looks like a very, very like a latte. That's the kind of the what it looks like. Well, kids will stare. And my wife is great. She'll like, hey, do you want to, this is how he's fed. So, but then it's funny though, sometimes adults are just like, what's wrong with him? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that question in that tone. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine who's got a son that's special needs, and she's like, what's wrong with you? Which is probably not the way to come back at him. You're thinking that, but you don't. So but it's just, it gets old. But it's also, Elias has, even though Elias can't talk, he's taught, I think, a lot of people about life by just watching how he does things, and I mean, we'll have people say to us, and oh, you're so inspiring and stuff like that. And we hope his story is, and we share his story. We're very open about everything we go through with him. But at the same time, it's just, he's just a cute kid.
He is, dude. He is definitely a cute kid. I've seen a lot of pictures of him on social media and stuff when you're talking about it. And I love that you're just kind of walking through life and sharing that experience with so many. I know he just had a surgery and everything that's kind of come through as a result of that. Dude, tell me, as a father, what's one thing that you've struggled with and how did you overcome it?
I mean, I've always tried to be there for the kids. I've always tried to say, hey, I'm gonna, I mean, when I was at the television station, I did take more trips and things like that and be like, okay, I have to do that. But then there were times where I said, I'm not going to miss this. I'm not going to miss this. I'm not going to miss this. But I think there's always that nagging thing is, are you being the best dad you can? I mean, comparison, I mean, we're both in the creative field too. And as creating content like I do, it's just so tempting to look at, you feel good about it. You see somebody else's video and go, oh man, that's so much better than mine. Or you go look at somebody's, their portfolio and go, oh, I'm never going to go to that place again. And I think parenting's the same way. We don't want advice from other parents because we know, but at the same time, it's always like, and I think that's the point of, there's those moments where it's like, am I being the best dad I need to be? Am I being in the moment? I mean, I know have been times, especially when the kids have been younger, where I'm with them, but I'm not, because I'm thinking about something else. I'm doing something else, or I'm sitting there on my phone with them. And I think in those moments, those are the ones I wish I had back, where, I could have probably been more in the moment rather than just kind of thinking I was in the moment. So, I mean, those are always tough.
You know what? And I think in what we do, because I work out of my home in my office and doing this a lot, the creative and editing and videos and everything else, right? And I get caught up in it all the time too. I'm like, all of a sudden, my wife's really good about it. She'll duck her head in the door and go, honey, you've been up here for like 6 hours straight. We're eating dinner.
Yeah. Your eyes are glazed over.
Yeah, I get so focused. And so she keeps me in balance with all that. But I think you're right. And I think there's times where I get going down that trail and the enemy is just wearing my butt out. You're what kind of dad are you? What kind of husband? You jerk, blah, 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 And so it's like, I always have to bring myself back. Okay, God, show me. direct.
Yeah. And I also think there were times where it's just, I believe in discipline and consequences and things like that. But I also think times when later it was like, okay, did it really matter if they did blank? Now I'm not talking about like, did it really matter if they snuck out of the house? Yes, it did. And they didn't, that we know of. But I think there are times where it's like, you come down on them, you get upset, and then later it's like, was that really a big deal? What did I just show them about me? Now, I do also think they need to see your weaknesses. And one of the things that we always did is, if we screwed up as parenting, which is usually me, not my wife, I would say, hey, you know what? I apologize. I'm sorry for that. I didn't always do it, but when I was when I was wise enough or felt the spirit go, punk, then I'd say, hey, you know what? I lost my cool and I shouldn't have. You didn't frustrate me. I allowed myself to get frustrated. And there's a difference.
Well, and I think too, I just had this conversation with my middle daughter not long ago, is sharing with her some of my own issues and how sometimes my anger comes out of my own issues. It has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
It's my own junk, my own stuff, that
Yeah.
I still work through, right? My own inefficiencies and wounds and whatever. What's the best thing about being a dad, brother?
Oh man. Well, the funny thing is, I mean, I'm kind of a kid at heart.
Yes, you are.
So I used to say that I was an adult for a while and I didn't enjoy it. So I went back to being a kid. I think the best thing is seeing life through their eyes. Now, even with Elias, even though he can't verbalize and tell us what's going on, we can still see life through him in a different perspective. I mean, the special needs is a whole different world we knew nothing about, nothing. And now we feel like we know something about. But I think the best thing is just, you realize sometimes how big the world is and how cool it is, and how sometimes you just got to play and you got to kick back and you got to have some fun. And we've all heard the joke about, bought this gift for my kid and all he cared about was the box. And it's like, yeah, but there's a thing about imagination that I think sometimes if we get adults, we just forget, how to just, because we got all the worries of the world and the bills and the job and all this other stuff. And that's it. I mean, I think that's been the biggest thing, is that doing things together, having fun, wanting the kids to do things together, and have fun, having them just talk to you, and it's cool. I mean, again, our oldest is 22 and be 23 next year, which usually happens. You're always the next year.
It's weird how that happens.
Somebody may want to write that down. That's big. But the fact that he still texts me, the fact that not even just text, that we talk, the fact that we still tell each other we love you. I mean, that's it, because I know there's a lot of people that don't have great relationships with their parents or their kids, I mean, permanently, not just occasionally.
Well, too, I know it's probably plays true with your two older ones. I know it does with my two older ones. It's like they're out doing their own thing in college. When they're home, and it's like you can tell, like when they want to talk, it's like I drop everything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let anything pass by this moment, because there's not that many times, because they're out doing their own thing on their own. There's not that many times you're able to have those conversations. And man, in those conversations at midnight or 2 a.m. in the kitchen on a weekend, it's like, yes. And I just sit and, and now, can I get better at listening?
Oh, we all can.
Yes. Yes. I need to listen more and talk less. But as dad, you always want to, here's the advice and here's how I would do this and blah, blah, blah. Right. You want to fix it.
Yeah. I remember a couple of times with my daughter saying, now, are you just telling me, or are you asking for my advice? And she'd say, I'm just telling you. And you're like, no, I want to tell you what to do. Okay.
No, you know what, dude? Especially with daughters, that's probably one of the more valuable lessons I've learned, is sometimes they don't want my advice. They don't want me to fix anything. They just want me to sit there and listen and to shut up.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's tough. I remember when Brandon's our oldest. I remember when he was really, really young. I mean, like small, and he was doing something, and I let him do it because I knew he. I mean, he was young. I knew it wasn't going to work, and I knew it was not going to end well. Not that he was going to get hurt, but I knew he needed to fall to understand it. And I remember my father-in-law at the time saying that it was hard for him to watch, but he knew that Brandon needed to learn that. Because if you're constantly swooping in and constantly saving your kids, I got to tell you, it's like the story of the prodigal son, that there's a line in the story that it's always been there, and it hit me like a year or so ago. It's when it says, when the son, he's gotten everything and he's gone off and he's blown everything and he's finally realized he made a mistake. It says when he came to his senses. And I thought, wow, because I think as parents, we always want to fix it for our kids. We always want to, I know I want to keep them from the hurt. I want to keep them from sometimes experiencing the pain that life's going to give them. I'm not talking about putting them in danger. But at some point, they have to live life and make those decisions, even if it's things that we would never, ever want for them or have them do or agree with them. And then you hope, if it's really bad, when they come to their senses, they'll come around.
The thing I like about the end of that prodigal son story too is, I was watching a pastor not long ago that brought this up, and I'd never thought about this, but in thinking deeper and more about it, when that son comes back home, his dad doesn't say, "Hey, I told you, you knucklehead." He just, in the end, it's interesting in the Bible because he doesn't even respond.
Yeah.
He just says, "Let's party."
Let's throw a party.
I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get the robes, get the fat calf, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate that my son was lost and now he's found, right? He's returned home. And so, because I think most of us as parents would have like, "Yeah, I told you so, you knucklehead." And
you sit down. We're going to talk this through right now. Yeah. I mean, and that was another thing I think I used to do, is because, when the kids did something that I really wanted to address was the wrong thing, rather than just like dealing with it or whatever, I'd get into my lecture mode, and let me tell you the fourth point, you should have done that. And it's like, dude, you lost him like about 45 minutes ago, and then it was like, so you're not even connecting, and all they're hearing is like, wow, 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 the Charlie Brown, like, wow, 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 you didn't, wow, 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 wow.
Yeah, dude, I've been there. My girls, as they gotten older, have said, "Dad, I don't want to lecture." And I'm like, and even my tone, I even tried to start out differently. Hey, you know what I try to be the whole bit. It still comes across as a lecture. So yes, I'm still learning that too. Dude, before we get into the last question and wrap this thing up, I tell people what it is that you do and about your media group.
So the name of my company is called, you ready for this? Kevin Colby Media.
Wow.
I tried to come up with a name that I thought I had a good shot at remembering. For those of you I don't know, my name is Kevin Colby. So I'm a video coach, also a content creator. And one of the things I do is I work with businesses and entrepreneurs and content creators, and I just help them understand video and use video and get into video and grow with video, because I think we all have gifts. And so why not help people create things that then they can share those gifts and make an impact, whether it's in I always say the world, but their community or whatever. And, I've been blessed to work with some phenomenal nonprofits and businesses and entrepreneurs that, to help them use video. And that's what I do. That was for years. I was the creative services director at a Fox station. and we were more entertainment based, but we also worked with sales and news and things like that. So that's what I do. I live stream a lot. I produce my own content, but I also help people create online courses. I've got several clients that I've helped create online courses, which is yet just another way to use your gifts, whether it's, teaching somebody else a skill, but then you can turn that into a way to make money, which there's nothing wrong with.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, you may not have seen it. We are actually doing a YouTube live tomorrow morning. Kevin has played such a vital role in me getting refocused on my YouTube channel. We've had a YouTube channel for like 10 years and wasn't doing anything with it, just posting clips, not doing anything else. And then Kevin kind of a few months ago got me focused and got me paying attention to YouTube and got me sold on the idea that I need to be doing more of this. So he coached me through several sessions, taught me a lot about how to do YouTube. And so tomorrow morning, we're going to be going live on his YouTube channel. So make sure you check out Kevin Colby Media and subscribe to his channel. This guy's a stud and knows a ton of stuff about video and marketing and YouTube and everything. So last question.
Hit me.
If you have a new dad sitting in front of you and he says, okay, Kevin, give me one piece of advice that's going to be a game changer, what are you going to tell him?
Stop trying to be the best dad ever. Give yourself some grace, admit when you're wrong, and enjoy every minute of it. I mean, it is true. You turn around, it's like, weren't you just like 6 a day or two ago? You're not going to know everything. You never will. And you're not going to be prepared for everything. But I think, making sure that you're as real as you can be with your kids. I mean, here's the thing. We wouldn't follow a savior if it was a scam or we just got some of the story. I mean, you don't have to read much of the Bible to pretty much figure out who Jesus is, not was, who he is. So, be as transparent and as real as you can be with your kids. So they see your successes, maybe even help you with them, but they also see where you stumble and fall and fail and how you deal with it. That will teach them the biggest lesson that no one else can.
Dude, I love it. And I think it's such a good word because so many dads out there, I think there's this standard that we think we need to be living up to, or there's all these other people that we're comparing ourselves with, when in reality, it's failure, dude. Failure as a dad. You can't be afraid to fail because then you'll never succeed, right? Quote unquote.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that, our kids and our families, they see the real us anyway. So it's going to be very obvious to them faster than maybe yourself if you're putting up the front, you're doing all this other stuff. And that can be easy to do, I think a lot of people, want to be liked and all this other stuff. And then social media get involved. We really want to be liked. But they need to see that we're human, that we don't have all the answers, that we messed up. And then how did we deal with it? Because if we're not handling it well at all, then they're going to see the hypocrisy when we're trying to tell them, well, the worst phrase ever that I probably used to, you need to grow up. Why? You're 8. You need to act 8. I mean, you're 8. You can't grow up. You're 8. That's your age. I'm 7. Some of the worst things we ever say is parenting. But just see the real you and enjoy that and embrace it. And then, I think that's where they're going to get the life lessons that'll take them a long, long way that they will have to also continue to learn and apply.
And I think most importantly, and you hit it on the head, you alluded to it a little bit, is that the you they see with your friends, with neighbors at church needs to be this real you they see at home. I think a lot of us men struggle with that, and we're sending mixed signals there if we're a different person outside of the home than we are inside. And I think, one of the most valuable lessons I learned, and you alluded to it again, is just the being the real with our kids. I mean, sharing our own struggles and issues. I've shared my battle with depression and my story of alcoholism and all that with my girls. And I think it does, one of the most valuable things it does is it helps them see that we are human, that we're not perfect. There's not some crazy standard for us for them to have to live up to. And it helps them see that when we do struggle, They know we're struggling, and we can still have those conversations with them, and they know it's okay to struggle. They know it's okay not to be okay, right?
Yeah. And, and I would also throw out too, and I realize there's single parents out there, and that's a whole different thing to have to carry through life. Not a stain, but just you're doing the work of two a lot of times, and sometimes it's cause of divorce, sometimes it's cause of death. But for couples that are together, love your wife. I'm talking to the guys. Love your wife. I mean, and let the kids see that love, because again, they're going to pick up on that. That mom and dad are always into it, or they're fighting. And when you do, make sure they see you make up. Make sure that you talk about it too. And because again, the world is going to teach them if you don't. They will. That's an absolute guarantee. And you can still teach them and they'll go off on a different path, but at least you've instilled the I don't want to say the tools, but the things that they're really going to need to help them, that hopefully they can come back to.
Amen, brother. Hey, thanks for doing this again, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, greatly appreciate you. For those of you who are watching, we will be doing this every Monday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, having a guest on, just sharing stories and advice and wisdom from others. Because I don't have all the answers. I'm learning still all these years, but it's about having these real honest conversations, man, and what we can learn from them. So again, subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you'll be alerted every time we release a new video and do a YouTube live. I greatly appreciate you guys, and thanks for joining us on The Father Fact. See you. Bye.